Would it be helpful if I just sort of summarized what was announced today and then take questions? Would that work? Okay. So President Capilouto has been endeavoring to keep everyone informed over the last several weeks as much as possible about what's a very fluid and dynamic situation with the coronavirus of COVID-19. So today he wrote to the campus with some updates as we're heading into spring break about some next steps that we're taking, given what's a rapidly evolving situation and issue with this health challenge that we have. In short, as he has said throughout this process and as he has said throughout his 9 years as president of the University of Kentucky, the health, the safety, the wellness of our entire campus community is our top priority. So the steps we're taking today, the steps we've been taking throughout this process have always been informed by that principle. So the steps that he announced today to the campus include that the campus, he wanted to reinforce for everyone that the university is going to remain open. We're going to remain committed to our education, our research, our service, our healthcare missions. Over the 2 weeks after spring, we go on spring break next week. Over the 2 weeks after spring break, we are going to shift in-class instruction for a 2-week period to online or alternative forms of delivery of education, whether that's video or some other sort of online option. So our hope would be between March 23rd and April 3rd, that in-class instruction will switch to online or some alternative form of delivery. And then our goal, our fervent goal, is by April 6th to be back with in-class instruction. We are, of course, given the evolving nature of this, it's a dynamic situation. We're going to be telling our faculty and work within our faculty to be prepared to do perhaps more. But our goal is to try to be back with in-class instruction on April 6th. Staff operations will remain as normal. Our healthcare enterprise, our research enterprise will continue to operate just as they operate now. We'll take the week after, we'll take that week of spring break when folks are away and when students are away then for that other 2 weeks to really do a deep clean of the campus as another kind of public health step that we're taking. Some other steps that we announced today include that we are taking the additional step of suspending all international travel that is sponsored by the university or endorsed by the university. I think similar to what the governor talked about today, we are strongly encouraging folks to not do domestic travel that's university sponsored or endorsed. We are adding some areas of the world to our list for healthcare protocols. As I think some of you know who have been covering this previously, we had designated that people returning to campus from what are called level 3 designated countries by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that they were going to have to go through our healthcare protocol, self-isolate for 14 days to make sure that they were over that risk of transmission. We are expanding that now, and so people coming back to the campus for whatever reason from Europe and Japan as well, given what we're seeing there in terms of spikes in the virus, we're going to expand it to them for that protocol. Folks are coming from those countries as well. We'll also be evaluating campus events on a case-by-case basis. There's no absolute 100% research out there that tells you what's a level of people that you ought to have or not have, crowds. And some people say 250, some people say 500, some people say in the thousands. So the option we're going to pursue is to evaluate things on a case-by-case basis, see where we are with events. To be candid, a lot of, as you know from around the country, a lot of folks are canceling conferences all over the country. Folks here have canceled events or delayed events or suspended events, so that's sort of been taking its own course. But we'll be evaluating those on a case-by-case basis. I'll just close and take questions by saying that, again, I think the email from President Capilouto today once again reinforces that everything we're doing is informed by that core principle of what can we do to ensure the health, the safety, the well-being of our entire campus. And with the goal in mind, too, we want to get our community back together as soon as possible. And the way that we do that is by trying to protect their health, trying to maximize the chances our students have for success, ensure the health of our campus community. That's what we've tried to do today with this announcement. Happy to take your questions.
Other universities have closed for the entire semester.
Right.
Why wasn't that a measure that you take?
Well, we did this. I think we want to take this step by step, look at this thoughtfully, proceed methodically. Our thinking was that we're getting ready to go on spring break, so that's a week. We've got another 2 weeks then with no in-class instruction but online instruction. We've had a registry that's been up for for some period of time now, several days, where we're asking people to voluntarily tell us where they might be traveling over the spring break. We've had over 3,000 people in a span of about 48, 72 hours fill out that registry to give us some information. What we've seen is we've got hundreds of students, mostly students, but hundreds of students, faculty, and staff who are traveling around the world also traveling to places domestically, understandably going back to home, but places that might have higher incidence rates of the virus. That 2-week period we think might, we know, just looking at the numbers, we know that you're going to have a higher likelihood of maybe people contracting the virus or the transmission of the virus. We've got about a 3-week period though where people can be, if they're asymptomatic or they get the virus, they can go through that healthcare protocol, they can go through that 14-day window, and hopefully we'll be in a better position then to assess. But we wanted to take it step by step. We're going to do what's right for the health, safety, and wellness of our campus, and we'll assess where we are in a couple of weeks. If we need to take additional steps, we'll do it. We've been doing that throughout. We've been taking, a couple of weeks ago, we had suspended travel to only level 3 countries. Now we're suspending university travel to both Europe and Japan as well. So I think we're showing that we are constantly monitoring this process. It's fluid, it's dynamic, and we're going to take methodical steps to ensure the health and wellness of our campus community. This was the step we're taking and announcing today. We'll see where we are in a couple of weeks. You need to talk to athletics about that. I'm not aware that it changes anything. And by the way, Dr. Capilouto is going to the SEC, so I knew you were going to ask. So. You can ask Guy Ramsey about Coach Cal, but all right.
Will students be allowed to go back to their dorms?
Yes. We anticipate we keep a number of dorms open during spring break anyway. So because some folks can't leave, a lot of international students can't leave, so we keep a number of residence halls open in any event. We anticipate that many, if not most, students will go home for that 3-week period. So we wanted to go ahead and make this announcement today to give them and their families time if they wanted to take more belongings with them, clothes and other items. But we anticipate that some students, for a lot of reasons, will want to stay or need to stay, and we're going to make accommodations for that. We'll be communicating more over the next couple of days before spring break formally starts to tell students about what kinds of accommodations we can make, how the modification and instruction is going to work, what dining facilities will be open. We are working through all those processes now, but yes, residence halls will be open during that period.
Will students with on-campus jobs be expected to come back to work?
We're going to talk to them about that. We are not going to expect folks to be on campus when we've got that period of time. We also know some students are going to want to continue to work. So we're going to work with students. We're going to work with those areas that employ a lot of students. Libraries is a good example. Dining is a good example, right? We'll be working with them to determine what students want to do. We are going to maximize flexibility because this step was not taken with the idea of finances being first, clearly. This step was taken with the idea of students and the safety and well-being of our campus being first.
How will the UK enforce the required 14-day isolation for students coming back from Europe and Japan?
And what we've been doing now with travel is, as we know about travel, as we know people coming back, UK Healthcare has been reaching out to those people, contacting them, talking to them about going through the protocol and ensuring that they do that. So we've been in constant contact with people who've been coming and going as they've made those travels. So we'll work through that protocol as we have before. And we have I should say too, we have a tremendous education abroad international education program. They do a really good job tracking the travel of students in particular, and now they've been taking that step of coordinating with UK Healthcare on that. So we'll continue that process. Yeah. I heard the Dean of Arts and Sciences, for example, today talking about that. They think they'll be able to adjust for those classes that have labs and make the kind of adjustments they need to. Those are the kinds of things over the next couple of days we'll be working through and communicating with students about. But we'll make the necessary adjustments, and we'll be flexible with students and work with them. We're not going to interrupt their studies. We want our students to be successful, and that's again going back to your earlier question. I think while it makes sense for us, every campus is different. Everyone's got different circumstances, but for us, it made sense to take this step. Let's see where we are. It's an evolving situation. It's changing daily. The World Health Organization just declared it a pandemic today. It changes every day. Let's take steps. Let's see where we are, and we can always evaluate. We'll be nimble, and we can make modifications as necessary, always with that principle in mind of the health and safety of our students and our campus.
What will the deep clean entail?
Our facilities office will be working on that. I'll be honest, I don't have all the details of that, but it's just a deeper cleaning process, a more intensive process, probably more regularly, more often as well.
Will the library and student center remain open?
Yeah, we plan to make.
Will you repeat the questions?
I'm sorry. Okay, I apologize. So will the library and student center remain open? The intent is for both of them to remain open. I don't know if hours will be modified or not, but we'll be communicating with the campus about that as well.
Okay, what was the threshold that led to the decision to
What was the? She asked about the threshold that led to the decision to cancel. I think we've had a President Capilouto a few weeks ago impaneled a work group that's meeting multiple times a week. That's been monitoring the situation. We've been getting updated numbers every day about the situation, looking at what's going on campus, certainly trying to understand what's going on across the landscape of higher education as well. I think one of the triggering events for us was as we started to think about getting the numbers, getting the data, and as you know, President Capilouto is a data guy. When we started to get the numbers around numbers of students traveling, where they were traveling to, and our faculty and staff as well, but mostly students, and then thinking about, that creates a higher likelihood for contracting and transmission of the virus. Can we create a window of time where we could sort of manage that? If you've got going into spring break, coming out of spring break for a couple of weeks, do we have a window of time where we could help manage that in a way that maximizes health and minimizes risk? And so I think that was one of the sort of triggering events, in addition to just the ongoing monitoring that's been going on.
Obviously, students will be staying at home, but what about the professors?
I think we'll be talking with professors. Obviously, they will have the option of being here on campus to deliver instruction through online or other kind of modalities, or could do it from home. We have built over the last several years a much more robust capacity for online instruction, and so they'll have multiple options to do that. She was asking about what will faculty do, where will they be in teaching it online. We already have faculty that do it in a variety of ways. As some of our students know who are here, we've got faculty who do it from home, we've got faculty who do it from a studio, we've got faculty who do it from their office. So there are lots of ways that you can provide that kind of instruction, and they'll continue to do that.
How will you be working with students who want to stay home but don't have access to computers anywhere other than here?
She's asking a really good question about there are going to be some students who have a lack of access to online capacity or digital learning modes, and how are we going to accommodate that? We're working through that process now. We're going to be contacting students, reaching out to students, trying to understand if people are going to places where access might be more limited. We are going to work with students down to the individual level to make sure that we're not compromising their learning. So we're going to be working with them to kind of figure that out. There are going to be multiple ways we can work around that, but we'll be working through that. That's why it was important. One of the reasons it was important for us to go ahead and make the announcement before we went to spring break, because we know those kinds of questions are going to come up. We know some students, we hope a small number, are going to have potentially some access issues. We've got an information technology office that's pretty robust as well. They'll be working through that process with students on an individual basis.
When were professors informed that they needed to make plans to move online, or
She asked about when professors were informed about the need. One of the teams that the president impaneled within the last week or so, but although we've been thinking about it for some time, was the question of if you had to move to more online learning or completely doing in-class instruction through online learning, how would you do that? As part of that process, we've been surveying the colleges and talking to faculty, as you all probably picked up, talking to the faculty about what that would look like, what that transition would look like. So it's not been a long period of time, but it's not been sudden either. We've been working with them, and as I think you all picked up on and heard, working with them over the last several days, thinking about that process and how we do that. And we've got a whole division, a Center for Information Learning and Technology, that thinks about faculty instruction and also thinks about technology and how it's utilized in the classroom and outside of it. So we've got a good group that thinks about those things. We've been working already with faculty on how we make that transition for a couple of weeks.
When do you think students can expect to have all of these questions answered?
She wanted to know when students would have all those questions answered. Our goal is over the next 24 to 48 hours to make sure that we are communicating much more vigorously with students beyond just the email that went out today. So I'm hoping in the next couple of days we'll have most of those questions answered. We have lots of ways to reach students, as our students know. So we'll be communicating a lot with them in a number of different forms to try to answer any questions they have and provide them with the resources they need.
are there any changes or plans specifically for international students, especially those who might be coming with countries with a higher level than we do have here?
She's asking about any changes with respect to international students coming back. I think the announcement we made today about the expansion of areas of the world where we're going to ask those students to go through that healthcare protocol, which would involve self-isolation for 14 days and some other steps. That's the major change you would see today. Any other questions? Don't want to stop anybody.
There are definitely a lot of other colleges and universities across the country that have kind of taken similar steps, some of which are probably benchmark institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any collaboration between UK and those universities back kind of some best practices tips?
Sure. I mean, certainly the President Capilouto talks to a lot of folks across higher education through his contacts in different associations like the NCAA and others. Certainly the universities on the throughout the state, the 8 public universities, they talk often. And in particular, we talk a lot and have been talking over the last 24 hours a lot with our colleagues and friends, Dr. Bendapudi at the University of Louisville and folks, and you can tell our announcements were pretty similar in a lot of respects. So we talk often, particularly with them, and they're close colleagues of ours. So there's a lot of collaboration. Each campus has got their own individual issues, certainly, and you have to do what's best and right for your students, but certainly there's a lot of conversation about that and sharing of ideas.
Obviously, there's a lot of things that would lead to this decision, but what will take you guys out of it? You have a deadline to come back. What's the threshold?
She asked if there's a threshold for changing the decision we made today with respect to in-class instruction, I think. I don't know that there's one thing. As I mentioned, we have a team that President Capilouto is impaneled that is meeting several times a week. We have stood up what we call our Emergency Operations Center. It is open every day now, where all we're doing is teams of people are working through these processes, trying to understand what we need to do to support the campus, to maintain operations, support students during this time. So we're talking about it every day. I don't know if there's one thing, but it's a fluid situation. I mean, think about how much it's changed since we first heard about the virus at the end of January till today. So we're going to be monitoring that situation. And again, if we keep our principle in mind, what's best for the safety, the health, and wellness of our campus community, and particularly our students, we'll make the right decisions. Other questions? All right. Thank you all very much.